All right, folks. So today I'm going to show you how I am turning the mayor's daily reporting on beds, ICU beds, and ventilators into visualized data. So here's an example of what the mayor will tweet every day, and then I'm turning it into this. And I'm just using Google Spreadsheet and Canva to make this. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Great. So let's go to today's example. All right, the mayor just tweeted something out about 25 minutes ago. It says total beds occupied, total ICU beds occupied, total ventilators. So I'm going to take this data, and the first thing I do is I just manually go get it. I've already created here. Very basic spreadsheet. I'm going to add the date, 4/16, 7/10, 2,995, 8/27. I'm going to pause this video, it's killing me. I like the mayor and all, but just for the demonstration purposes, I'm going to pause that. So 5/19, 9/40, 2/99. And something that is really nice that the mayor's done, or whoever's tweeting for the mayor, is put these percentages by the numbers, which I think is a great way to represent just regular data. He has 25 hospitals. He's reported there's 25 hospitals that are reporting. Great. So that's all of the data that we need. And just to give you like a little bit better understanding, this is what I'm collecting every day based on the mayor's tweet. And as you can see, it's already filled in these graphs that I've created, graphs and charts. So I initially started with something more like a bar graph, but that got a lot messy, got too messy, got too busy. So I'm going with this now, and this is like as of this week, just a little bit cleaner. One thing that I don't like about it is that it's scrunching down everything, so the numbers look like it's a flat curve, but I'm working to try to figure out how to make that a little bit more apparent in terms of the actual, the numbers. So I'm working on something like this, which will just give the amount of the data for things that are occupied and not available. Whereas this one is showing what is occupied and what's available. So that's how this graph is being created. Anyway, I'm also breaking down the beds, ICU beds, and ventilators into their own pie charts because I wanted to get a quick snapshot, just give people a visual understanding so that they can see, like, okay, we have half as many beds. We have 61% of ICU beds are being used, and start to get like a sense of where we're at just visually and quickly. So what I do after this, move my head over here. What I do after this is I go into, I have a few tabs here: beds, ICU units, ventilators. I literally just grab the data, copy that, paste it into my graph here, which has a little equation. So I think I grabbed the wrong data here. Sorry, total beds and beds occupied. Great. So I grab the data, paste it in, and it creates a new graph. In terms of available, I just did a quick formula. It's basically total beds minus the occupied beds, and then you get the available. And this graph is set up to take in the data where it will visualize occupied versus available. I don't calculate it just calculates the total beds and splits it up into occupied versus available. And that gets reflected in this pie chart here, right? So I'm going to do this again for total ICU beds occupied. Just copy, paste. You can see the pie chart move. Copy, paste into ventilators. The reason I split these up into their own tabs is just it was a lot easier for me. So I wasn't moving up and down through, I mean, I probably put everything here in this spreadsheet, but I just wanted to quickly be able to navigate through things. Everything gets visualized here. The only thing that I have to do that's different is now make sure that the numbers like 5,710 is similar or is accurate with what the mayor is reporting. 827, that's correct. And then here I have to go in and change the ventilators to 940. So these are just titles on the graphs themselves, and I just manually update them. If you want to figure out how to make these, what I did was basically a quick way to do this is just to highlight the numbers and then go to Explore, this Explore tab, right? And it'll give you the data. So you don't really have to think too hard. You just have to know what data you want to highlight. And then, so for this one, you can see that the red is equivalent to what's available and the blue is equivalent to what's occupied. And I just switched around the formula so that occupied is on the left and then available is on the right. We can get into that much later, but I just wanted to show you how I was able to visualize this quickly. It's nothing special. You just highlight the data that you want, hit Explore, and it'll spit out something for you that you can manipulate. Great. So now that all of that data has been pulled into the spreadsheet, I have my visualizations. Basically what I do next is just download it as an SVG. So here we go, download SVG. And the reason why I'm doing SVG is because it's a lot sharper. And SVG is a vector. You pull SVGs into Illustrator and you can size them and they don't lose their quality. There's no degradation. Same here, an SVG. Hospitals reporting, and then I'm going to go in. I usually check these numbers like 5 or 6 times to make sure that they're right before I download them, because having to go back and replace them is a lot of work. So just one more time, 5,710, 2,995, okay, 827, 519, 940, 299. Great. So those all look good. I'm just going to download the SVG versions. Yeah, so I kind of just hacked this together. There's probably a lot cleaner ways to do this, but for me, it works because I wanted to throw something out there quick. It usually takes me about 10 minutes or less to do this on a daily basis. So right when the mayor's tweet comes out, I have all my data. I just basically plug it in to the spreadsheet. It spits out my visualizations. I download everything. And then the next step is to pull everything into Canva. All right, so I'm going to make this screen a little bit bigger now because we're done with the mayor's data. And I go into my designs. I've created a template. Give it a second. It's still thinking. I've created a template that is just an 8.5 by 11, and it allows me to just pull all the data. Here's some of the early versions. Very big on the pie graphs, very big on the bar charts. Then I started to put the legend underneath the bar charts, and as more data has come along, now I started to add I don't think the hospitals weren't in the early versions, but now there's hospitals. And then slowly got to the point where I was just doing line graphs. So here we are now. What I do on a daily basis is just duplicate it, copy the page, immediately go in and change the date. So the numbers that the mayor is giving, he'll provide something on a Friday, but the numbers are from the previous day on a Thursday. Yesterday was the 16th. That's all I do for this. I also change the date on the pages, so that way when I go to download it, I know which one it is. Now I'm going to upload the SVG files. But before I do that, just because I like to keep things clean, I'm going to, I have a folder on my desktop. The only folder I have on my desktop is Beds, ICU, and Ventilators, just because that's what I'm focusing on right now. I'm going to create another folder real quick. Actually, not. Because I made the 16th folder yesterday. I made it after I published the data. In my downloads, here are the files, the 5 files that I've downloaded. I'm just going to pull them into my folder here on the desktop. Great. So now everything's organized. Just going to close this out. I'm going to upload an image or videos. Here's my Beds, ICU, Ventilators folder. All I do is highlight all of it and open it. And then I basically take all this data and resize it to fit this canvas in Canva. Right, so I like to start on the bottom with hospitals reporting. And I know that the title here on the hospitals reporting is on the top. It's something that it was a design choice that I made in Google Spreadsheet just to keep the title there, because it kind of scrunches down the bar chart a little bit, gives me a little bit more room to play with, so I don't have to alter the bar chart itself. Something I like to do here is turn on the margins, just to give me an overall understanding of how big to make these. And then I just go in and start resizing. Pull that one in. After I've placed the file on top of the old file, what I'll do is get it lined up to the best of my ability to where it was before. And then I just hold shift and hit up a couple times, and that allows me to go in and delete the file underneath, and then hit shift and hit the down arrow a couple times. So now I want to replace the Beds, ICU, Beds, and Ventilators graph for today. And so again, I'm going to go in and crop it real quick. Just crop out the titles and crop the bottom margin there. And so this one I've made a little bit bigger. So I like to keep the old image for reference so I can see if the new image that I'm creating is the same size, and it is in this case. So basically, I have it right in the right place. Shift down arrow a couple times, delete the image in the back, shift up arrow a couple times. So basically, if any of you are familiar with InDesign, this is kind of like a light version of InDesign. It doesn't show you where all of the frames are, but I didn't want to get too technical. I wanted to make something that other people could use. And so I decided to build this in Canva in case other people are interested. All right, so then, I'll space things here and there. Let me get a couple more, or let me get the rest of these images, SVG images, into the canvas. Okay, looks about right. A little bit small. I'm going to size it a little bit more. I'm lining the numbers up with a margin dotted line there. All right, I'll finagle that in a minute. So let me go and delete this behind. Pull in ICU Beds. I know this is all captivating, but watching me design in real time, or it's more like just laying out, because the design stuff is, I figured out, the design things that I had to figure out were like, what colors do I want to use to represent the different pieces of data? How do I want to lay out this board so that it's easy to digest? It's basically thinking through infographics. How do I want to, what fonts do I want to use? How do I want to relay the information for beds, like a dark blue versus light blue, or dark green versus light green, like those kinds of things? Those design decisions were made early on. There's really no rhyme or reason to the colors. I think I chose blue for beds, and I chose red for, like, you don't want to be on a ventilator, so that's like danger, right? And then green, it just looked nice to me. There's probably some accessibility guidelines that accessibility standards that I'm not following, and I apologize for that. It was never my intention to make it non-accessible. I just wanted to be able to showcase the data real quick. So this little green guy here is a little bit great. So it's in the center. I like to reference the other images off the green one because it's centered. This is relatively the same size. I think this one, if I go up a hair. So this is not an exact science. I'm just eyeballing it for the most part. I like to make sure that the numbers are in line here, and that the lines on the line up here on these images, but also that they line up with the dates. At least the hospital's reporting line up with the dates. And so for this one, I finagle it just a bit. Not exactly perfect. So, all right, so here's what we're looking at. Get a preview, do a quick preview. I know some of the numbers up here are missing. I'm still working through trying to figure out, if I want to expand the vertical part of this chart to maybe be 6,500, but then that'll squish the data even more. And right now everything looks really flat, and I'm kind of working through that because if you remember in the other chart, it had, it had some more diversity in terms of like the ebbs and flows of the data. And in later versions, I'll figure out how to do that. I might even just publish this graph rather than the graph that I'm using now. Just over time, all of these kinds of things evolve, right? So I think we're done. That's bothering me a little bit. Okay, so then when I'm at this point, all I do is hit download. I scroll all the way down, select page 15. It's the date 4/16. And like I said, I always go back and I check the numbers a lot, but for this tutorial, I'm just showing you like how to get through all of this. Okay. So now that is in my downloads folder. I'm going to move back to Twitter. One second. Let me pull this. Okay, so you're seeing a little bit behind the scenes. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate that. Going to the mayor's tweet. Before I do that, I'm going to do one last check. Just because I'm like that. 5,710, 827, 940, and then 2,995, 519, 299, and then 25 hospitals. So it's for the 16th, Thursday the 16th. It's good. All right, and the last thing I do is just type visualized, and then go to my downloads folder, select this PNG that I created, and hit reply. So that is how I visualize the mayor's tweet every single day in terms of the total beds, the ICU beds, and ventilators in Dallas. I've been doing that just because I want to give people an idea of the numbers. I want to, help people understand why it's good to stay home or social distance, or, what the capacity is for our medical professionals. And this is just an easy way to see all of that data all at once, rather than just getting, this tweet and trying to have to decipher what it means in the larger context. The data that I'm showcasing here is just data that is being reported since the mayor started tweeting stuff. So that's why some of the numbers early on, 8, 12, 15 hospitals, 21 hospitals reporting. I think it took a second for hospitals to ramp up in terms of reporting their data. And then here in the last couple of weeks, you can see that it's been consistent, 24 to 25 hospitals. So that's good. And you can kind of see where the line is from 4.6 to 4.16, so the last 10 days. But yeah, that's a quick thing that I wanted to do in order to help Dallas residents understand the data that's being put out there daily, and especially when it comes to beds, ICU units, and ventilators. There's a lot of talk about opening up a whole convention center for overflow capacity had we started getting more cases of COVID. I think that is, having that data and having this understanding has helped, manage some of those kinds of decisions. But I wanted to also show Dallas residents what it's like where we're at on a daily basis for the capacity of the medical equipment that we have. That's it. Thanks so much for joining me on this tutorial, and see you next time.